Global warming is real and a very serious threat. Here I will explain why. I'll also explain what causes global warming and what can be done about it. When trees or other plants are chopped down, the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere increases. This is because humans convert oxygen to carbon dioxide, and plants convert it to oxygen. It is a cycle, but when there are less plants, there's more carbon dioxide. Not only this, but when chemicals are released in the air, it can lead to there being more carbon dioxide. An example of this is when a source of energy, such as coal, gas, or oil, is burned and the air is polluted. Sometimes products such as hairsprays can have chemicals that can increase the carbon dioxide in the air. Luckily, the government regulates what sort of things can and can't be put into products. The reason that too much carbon dioxide is harmful is that it is a greenhouse gas, which means that it traps heat in the atmosphere. If carbon dioxide becomes too prevalent, then the Earth's temperature will increase, causing the climate of the entire planet to be drastically altered. Not only this, but certain chemicals will destroy the O3 atoms in the atmosphere. These atoms stick to the ultraviolet rays in the atmosphere. This is known as the ozone layer, and it protects us from harmful radiation from the sun, which causes cancer. In the 1950s, many of the chemicals which contributed to the destruction of the ozone layer were banned, and the hole is actually shrinking. However, like carbon dioxide, O3 is also a greenhouse gas. This is a problem. Leave a hole in the ozone layer, and humans will be exposed to harmful radiation. However, restoring the ozone layer would cause the Earth's temperature to increase. Luckily, though, although this is a slightly valid concern, the contribution to the global temperature from O3 is very small. Carbon dioxide causes more problems than O3, so we should focus on decreasing carbon dioxide and let the ozone layer repair itself. Also, decreasing the Earth's temperature back to its natural, although decreasing the Earth's temperature back to its natural equilibrium is of utmost importance to the future of humanity, so is repairing the ozone layer. 97% of the scientific community believe in climate change. They also believe that it is not a natural cycle and that it is caused by humans. 1/3 of Congress does not believe in climate change, and it is obvious why. Combating climate change is a threat to industries such as the oil industry, and as we know, those who are rich and powerful have a large influence in our government. Have you ever heard of the EPA? It is a government agency known as the Environmental Protection Agency. Its job is to protect the environment and alleviate the effects of global warming. However, recently, a climate change denier was put in charge of the EPA by the president. This decision is horribly ridiculous. That is like putting a vegan in charge of a meat factory. Or like, putting a vegan in charge of an Outback Steakhouse. The scientific evidence for climate change is undeniable. The Earth's temperatures are rising at an exponential rate, higher than any other time in the history of the entire world. It has been proven that the level of carbon dioxide is increasing in the atmosphere, and we know that carbon dioxide causes an increase in temperature. Not only this, but the majority of the world's rainforests no longer exist. It is the combination of organisms that absorb sunlight, such as plants, and animals that create the balance between oxygen and carbon dioxide. The connection that is implied by these facts is obvious. Human beings are destroying this world. Not to mention that the population of the world is 8 billion people, and the carrying capacity for the Earth is 10 billion people. At the rate in which the population is increasing, it is estimated that the Earth will reach 10 billion people by the year 2060. We are at a point in history where humanity has become more advanced in the past 200 years than in all of human history. Much of our technology harms the Earth. Not only this, but every human being uses a certain amount of this technology, and every human being uses a part of this world's resources. Human beings cannot survive in the natural world. This is why we no longer adapt to it, but rather we change the world around us. We change the world to adapt to us. This is one reason why not everyone wants to save the wild. The wild is a dangerous place, and many human accomplishments were caused by getting rid of the wild and replacing it with cities that are suitable for human life. The steps which are required to alleviate the problem at hand are inconvenient. Many people are skeptical and cynical due to the nature of this world, and this is made worse when environmentalists are portrayed as tree huggers and hippies. But although destroying the natural world has helped build up society, it will ultimately lead to its destruction. Humanity and the natural world, to a certain extent, need to coexist. There must be a balance between the two. This has been made into a political issue, and the majority of people tend to vote along party lines. I understand that political parties cannot just unite or quit fighting, due to the fact that they often have opposite goals which are completely incompatible. But for an issue of such importance, the people must unite and put aside their petty grievances until the issue is solved. Even if you do not agree with your fellow peers on the issue of climate change, at least consider the fact that the Earth is our only world, and we should make sure not to destroy it. We should still be trying to avoid the destruction that can be caused when you harm the planet you live on. Some of the effects of global warming are already being seen. For example, there's been an increase in the amount of flooding around the world. The polar ice caps are also melting, bringing death to the species which live on them. Soon they will be completely gone, causing a massive change in weather and the environment. In the near future, in this century, only several decades from now, that global warming will take full effect. Entire sections of the Philippines will completely sink underneath the water. Other areas, such as Africa, will increase so much in temperature that there will be droughts, and the land will be unfit to grow crops. Places such as these already have a problem with supplying their people with food. But the problem will increase tenfold. Mass extinctions of living organisms across all the world will continue. Not everyone cares, since they do not think it affects them. However, due to the relationship between creatures in an ecosystem, killing one creature can cause the death of many others. For example, bees pollinate plants. If they were to go extinct, other species which eat those plants would go extinct as well. Or the food chain. There might be an ecosystem where a mouse eats grasshoppers, a snake eats mice, and a hawk eats snakes. But if all the grasshoppers in the habitat were to die, the mouse, snake, and hawk would die as well. Things like this can domino effect until it harms humans. A specific example of how harming animals can affect humans is seafood. When we pollute the oceans, many fish go extinct, and we can no longer make certain types of seafood. But not only this, but some of the fish which do not become extinct end up containing toxins and poisons such as lead and mercury, which is extremely harmful to the human body. We currently have problems with the economy, illegal immigration, and foreign policy. But imagine how much these problems will be made worse if countries on one side of the world are constantly being flooded, while countries on the other side of the world experience drought and famine. People from worse off countries would try to immigrate in large masses to countries which are wealthy. But living in a wealthy country will not protect you from global warming, because the places which a wealthy country trades with will no longer have the supplies to give them. Everyone will be harmed by the problems caused by climate change. There are solutions, but many of them cause problems. So we must continue to search for solutions and employ them. For example, restoring the rainforest is difficult. We need to use a lot of land to build cities, and rainforests have a lot of supplies we need, such as lumber. It takes a long time for trees to grow back, and the rebuilding of forests is difficult to control. However, a man in China came up with a very interesting idea. He created what are called vertical rainforests. They are skyscrapers that are filled with trees on every floor. These were created to alleviate the heavy amount of smog which pollutes China's air. Speaking of air pollution, one of the main things that causes air pollution is fossil fuels. The majority of fossil fuels come from the remains of prehistoric plants and animals, such as ancient ferns and dinosaurs that have been buried in the ground for dozens of millions of years. For examples of fossil fuels are coal, gas, and oil. Although they are very powerful sources of energy, there is a problem. They are extremely toxic and pollute the air. Not only this, but fossil fuels are not infinite. Gas, coal, and oil will eventually run out, and it takes millions of years for more fossil fuels to be created. Even now, we wage wars to get oil. We trade with countries run by dictators and terrorists to get oil. We are no better than a bunch of cavemen murdering each other in order to gain ownership of a river or stream. It is estimated that at the rate we are using up fossil fuels, we will run out of oil by 2052, we will run out of gas by 2061, and we will run out of coal by 2088. It is said that this is not exact, and we may find a couple more reserves that will delay this process for a little while, but the sources of energy we currently use are still going to run out very soon. Luckily, there has been some exploration in the matter of using alternative forms of energy, but we are not able to use them to replace fossil fuels yet. It is not even that these forms of energy are not powerful, it's just we have not figured out how to unlock their full potential. Examples of alternative energy are wind turbines, solar panels, dams, and geothermal energy. We cannot immediately replace all the energy in the entire world, but we should be working towards this. We should elect leaders who will invest in making alternative energy more efficient. And those who will try to integrate alternative energy as a source of power. Alternative energy has some advantages. First of all, alternative energy does not release smoke and toxin into the air. It is also renewable. Wind does not run out due to the fact that wind is caused by the heating and the cooling of the air. The wind created by this will moves wind turbines, creating kinetic energy, also known as the energy of motion. Some people say that wind turbines are noisy and ugly, but if we found a remote field to put a bunch of wild turbines, then there shouldn't be much of a problem. In fact, I think wind turbines are kind of cool looking. The United States is the only country in the developed world that isn't using wind power as one of their main sources of energy. Solar energy uses heat and light from the sun to create power. There's also hydroelectric power created by dams. The energy does not come from the water itself, but the motion of the water. Although this does not pollute the air, it does harm wildlife due to the fact that they will die if caught in the machinery. It is still better than oil and should be invested in, due to the fact that it is a renewable source of energy, but if it can be helped, this form of energy should be used sparingly. Speaking of water, one of the most turbulently moving bodies of water, filled with kinetic energy, is the ocean. The ocean constantly has violent waves and tides. As you know, motion can be converted to energy, as is the case with wind turbines and dams. This is where ocean power comes in. Every time there are waves or a tide, electricity can be created. The next major source of alternative energy is geothermal energy. It is similar to solar energy when it comes to, due to the fact that it uses heat to create power. Underground, the molten lava is so hot that it converts water below the surface of the earth to steam, and it is with this steam that geothermal energy is created. This energy is clean and renewable. Do you remember fossil fuels? These are created by plants and animals that live in the prehistoric era. But what if I told you that we can use the remains of plants and animals that exist now to create energy? Plants and animals are filled with gases such as nitrogen, carbon, oxygen, and these gases have a huge potential to be converted into energy. Not only this, but when this form of energy known as biomass is combusted, it does not release carbon dioxide, it does not release carbon into the air or carbon dioxide, despite the fact that many sources of biomass have carbon in them. A very powerful form of energy is known as hydrogen energy. In other words, nuclear power plants. Despite the fact that it does not pollute the environment, if there is an accident that destroys a power plant, it can be catastrophic. But that is the thing about efficient forms of energy. They often contain a lot of power, and this makes them efficient forms of energy, but also makes them very dangerous. It is so powerful that the energy created by splitting a single atom is enough to destroy an entire city. In fact, when scientists first researched nuclear power, their intention was to create an everlasting form of energy, not a horrific and destructive weapon that killed millions of people. Originally, they used uranium, but now we use hydrogen. Nowadays, sadly, not only was the result dangerous, but again, it was made to use weapons, and it was used to destroy 2 entire cities filled with civilians. Nuclear power has struck fear into the hearts of many people. Threats of nuclear annihilation have plagued society during times such as the Cold War. Nowadays, there are even fears of corrupt dictators getting their hands on nuclear energy and using it. Nowadays, we use hydrogen to create nuclear energy. And the advantage of using hydrogen is that it is one of the most common elements on Earth. Even water is filled with millions of hydrogen atoms, and water covers the majority of Earth's surface. My recommendation would be to use nuclear energy with extreme caution, if at all, since it is very dangerous and destructive. However, this is most likely the next form of energy we will have to use if we run out of fossil fuels. If we have made no investments in the matter of alternative energy. However, if further research was done in all forms of alternative energy, and all of the energy we produced were to be combined, imagine how much energy we could have. If we invest in better alternative energy sources such as water, wind, solar, geothermal, and biomass, we could end up with a clean, renewable, efficient, and nearly never-ending supply of energy. Sorry about that. However, until we finish perfecting alternative energy and completely integrate it into society, there is one more way we can fix the issue of global warming: hybrid cars. These cars use electric batteries to fuel themselves. They use gasoline as well, but they do not completely rely on it. They use a combination of electricity and gas to fuel the car, thus the name hybrid. Because of this, they reduce the amount of pollution produced by cars. Of course, someone might ask how driving some stupid hippie car would solve a problem as large as global warming. My answer is that one person driving a different car will not save the Earth. But if millions of people started investing in better cars, the amount of pollution going into the air would decrease exponentially. Some people may argue that driving a hybrid car says something bad about you as a person, that it makes you weak or not manly enough, but this ideology is irrational and probably meant to convince you to buy oil-chugging cars. Driving a car you believe to be less harmful to the Earth does not make you a weaker person in any way. Some people say that driving a hybrid is self-righteous and snobby. To this, I just say, if you drive a hybrid, you should not go around rubbing it in people's faces, as it will repel any potential customers of hybrids. Sure, driving a hybrid is good for the Earth, but it does not make you a saint. One must understand that hybrids are typically more expensive due to the fact that they are new and they use more advanced technology. Also, not everyone is aware of how much their cars pollute the air. The truth is that the problem of air pollution will only increase as the population goes up. For example, China. China has one of the largest populations in the world and is an industrialized nation. The air is filled with so much smoke that people often develop problems in their lungs and have to wear masks to protect themselves. The implication is obvious. In the near future, almost every developed nation in the world could become like this. In conclusion, I would like to say this. There's overwhelming scientific evidence of global warming, and yet 1/3 of Congress are climate change deniers. The President has appointed a climate change denier as the head of the EPA and is passing policies that are killing protections on the environment. Climate change will cause massive destruction such as flooding, famines, droughts, economic turmoil, and destabilization of nations all around the world. Some of the major things I think can help to solve global warming are vertical rainforests, alternative sources of energy, and hybrid cars. These are not all of the things, but these are some very major suggestions and some ideas I had. And that was my take on global warming. Make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, and the sources of my information are in the description. Peace out.